Okay, and welcome back, students taking Math for Business and Finance and Math Applications. We're on this here final video for the theory of Chapter 14, Installment Buying. And before I jump, well, I'm going to jump down, but remember that, if you didn't understand what was in the previous video, pause it, rewind it, watch it several times. And if you still didn't understand something, feel free to telephone and speak with an instructor, okay? Or contact us via email. But between what you read in the book and what you see on the videos, you're going to pretty much understand a lot of what you need to. Okay, so calculating the average daily balance. Doing this is kind of tedious, all right? And it's a way, think about a credit card, okay? If you had a beginning balance on your credit card and, you make purchases, however many, right? Maybe you make 3 or 4, and somewhere along the line you make a payment, because maybe you're paying against that one or just whatever, and you buy some more, and then you end up with an ending balance. And looking at all of that information can be quite confusing. So in order to be able to provide metrics, statistics, like credit card companies use the idea of average daily balance because the swings can be an awful lot. Think about it. If I started out with, say, $1,000 as a beginning balance, and I made a purchase of $250, and then I paid off $1,250, well, what's my, my ending balance is 0. But how does that help me when I want to know, during that month, what my balance was? Well, that purchase of, so I started out in the beginning with 1,000, but maybe on the first of the month I made that purchase of 250, and then on the second day of the month I paid it off, the full 1,250. So day 3 all the way down through, say, 30, my balance is 0. Okay, well, how, that skews the information. Okay, yeah, you owed the credit card company $1,250, and you owed it to them for 2 days, right? But really not, because you only owed the $1,000 for 1 day, okay, and the $250 for the second day, and then the third day you paid it off, right? And then all the remaining days it was 0. So when you're looking at it, yeah, you owed the credit card company money, but then you didn't, for the remaining of the period, you didn't owe that much. So it's easier to think in terms of the average daily balance in order to provide statistics and metrics and whatever have you in order to, analyze, the books and so on and so forth. So that's why we end up doing an average daily balance. So what does it all include? All right, let's see here. Like I said, it's tedious calculations. As you can see, it says the daily balance is equal to the previous balance plus cash advances plus purchases less payments, right? So the previous balance is the beginning balance, and cash advances, that's borrowing cash, or you can also think of it in terms of purchases, okay? Because if you're borrowing the cash advance, it's the same as buying something anyway. And then, of course, you're subtracting out payments. Now, the thing about it is that you have to consider how many days in between each transaction that occurs. Okay, so let's look at it from this person, and I'll use this came from the textbook, so you can follow along in the textbook. On 6/20, we had a beginning balance of $450. Okay, and we had that for a 7-day period. Okay, because between 6/20 and 6/20 and 6/27, that's 7 days. So by actually that $450 over the 7 days comes out to $3,150. Okay, now on 6/27, a $50 payment was made. Okay, so that's going to be a minus, right? Because you're paying it. And that was, before your next charge, that was for 3 days. Okay, well, if you're making a $50 payment, that means at that moment in time you only owe $400. Okay, because well, actually, let me write it there instead. It might be easier to understand. So I'm subtracting 50 here, which means you only owe $400, and you owe it for 3 days because it's between 6/27 and 6/30. Okay, so that would be $1,200 that was owed for those 3 days. Right? Then you had an additional charge on 6/30 of $200. Okay, so now the amount that you owe is $600, right? And that was for a period of 9 more days. Okay, and that equals 5,400. Okay, so on 7/9, okay, you make another payment, so that's less 40. So now you owe $560, and that's for, again, a period of 3 more days. Okay, and so that comes out to $1,680. So if I'm going to bring the $560 up here, okay, and then we have a cash advance on 7/12 of an additional $60. So now for that period you owe $620, and that takes you to the end of the month, okay, which is 8 days. Okay, so notice that, and how did I get this 8 days? Because it's not on the chart here. Okay, well, if I have 7 days, 3 days, 9 days, 3 days, okay, that's 10, 22, and there's 30 days in a period, right? That means 8 days left over, and that's how I arrive at the 8 days. So I take, excuse me, I take the 620 and I multiply it by 8, and that gives me $4,960. Now, I'm going to add up this 3150, 1200, 5400, 1680, and 4960. When I add them all up, I end up with $16,390. Okay, so that's the total by extension, and then I just divide the 16,390 by the 30 days, and that gives me an average daily balance of $546.33 over the course of those 30 days. Right? If I want to know, what the finance charge is, I take that and I multiply I take the 546.33, and in the book they're using it 1.5%, so I multiply it by 0.015, and that means my finance charge would have been $8.19. Okay, so that's how you do the average daily balance, and unfortunately there is no shortcuts to this. There are no factors. You have to do this all by hand, and depending upon how many transactions occur, I mean, if there's 30 transactions or 35, 30 transactions in a month, well, then you're going to have 30 calculations. There's no getting around it. Yeah, you can group some things together, and oftentimes, like on a credit card, you're not going to have that many transactions, but as you can see, these can be a bit lengthy. Okay. Unfortunately, it all has, this is one of those things where the math has to be done by hand. And to be honest with you, don't be setting up an Excel spreadsheet. By the time for the amount of time it takes you to set up an Excel spreadsheet in order to do the calculations right and make sure that it's accurate, you could have done the problem by hand. So just pull out the calculator and crunch the numbers. All right, so with that, I'm finished with the theory for chapter 14. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to telephone or contact an instructor, and we'll be more than happy to go over what you don't understand so that you do understand it. And as always, do the drill problems and the word problems, because watching the videos and seeing the theory is one thing, but actually doing the problems is an entirely different ball of wax, and that solidifies your understanding of the concepts. Okay, so see you in the drill problems.